Hey friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am playing with some Trinity Stamps goodies here, and I would love it if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. So this is called the Autumn Impressions stamp set. You can see I have the stamp set and the coordinating die. I love that big Happy Thanksgiving sentiment. I think it's beautiful, and I love that there's a coordinating die because that die essentially turns my sentiment into a word die, and I love when companies do that. It's one of my favorite things. So I've got a whole bunch of new ink colors that have been sitting on my desk that I'm going to play with today. And I decided I would stamp all of the leaves in this stamp set and die cut them all out. So I'm just going to use a bunch of different colors and stamp every single one a couple of times because I'm going to use those to build a couple of cards. And I have 3 cards I want to share with you today. And 2 of them will use all of these dies, and the 3rd one will be a different way to use this stamp set. So I'm also going to be playing with some goodies that I have. Isn't that Happy Thanksgiving gorgeous? Absolutely gorgeous. And you can see the variety of colors. So I have what I feel like is a nice fall set here. So this is the Mini-Slimline die set, and this is the largest of the Dainty Scallop Edge Mini-Slimline die set, and I love this. Is probably one of my favorite dies. The Mini-Slimline size is just wonderful. So I decided I wanted to do the first one with a lot of color. So I'm using a yellow, like almost like an orangey yellow, and I'm going to use an orange. And this is not my favorite paper for blending, so it's going to look a little splotchy till I play around with it. I really should be using Bristol paper, but I just happened to pull out some cardstock I got off Amazon, and it wasn't exactly as advertised, so I probably won't try to do that again to save money. So I'm putting in some orange and some green, and I'll add a little brown to this also, just to make it feel like, I just wanted a little brown in there just to make it feel like fall. And I love these color combinations. I love yellow, green, and orange together in the fall especially. So I'm just working on this, and I'm going to keep blending till I get something that I'm happy with. Once I get color down on the whole thing, then I start going back and forth between my blending tools just to get the colors to blend nicely so I don't have big blobs of color. Although with these very different colors, I am going to have some genuine spots of green, genuine spots of orange, and so forth. So I decided that I wanted to distress it a little, so I spritzed it with some water, and then in the time that it took me to reach my paper towel, that's how long I left that water on, just enough to get some nice big splotches and give it that little distressed feel. So I stuck the Happy Thanksgiving sentiment on with some foam tape, and now I'm just going to tuck in die cuts around the edge. And I decided I just want to do a few pieces on the right hand side and even less on the left hand side. So I fussed with this for quite a while, and I just tucked these under. And when I was happy with how I had them arranged, I went ahead and added some liquid glue beneath them, and I tried not to glue the very ends because leaving the ends sticking up a little bit gives you some nice dimension on your card. So this is just a matter of playing with the die cuts. I've been doing a lot of scrapbooking lately, so making big ephemera clusters is something I've been playing around with, so that's actually moving into my cards a little bit lately. So I did cut down a card base that is about 1/8 inch larger than this actually turned out to be. So you can see the white card base behind there, and I'm going to add some of these fabulous gems that came in my package. I was so excited when I saw these. I love the packaging on the gems that they have at Trinity Stamps. Like, they're so easy to store, and it's a wonderful way for them to send them. And I put a lot of these little gems, and I put all 3 colors. So I glued them down with some liquid glue, and that finishes off the first card. Moving on to the second card. Now this card you can see has a nice quilted background. This is the Quilted Slimline die, and that's actually a large slimline, but I used this really fabulous stitched stack Mini-Slimline die set. I used the largest rectangle in that set to create this card front. And again, I'm taking my leftover bits and just creating some colorful clusters in the bottom left corner and the top right corner. And this is just a matter of personal preference. I just really like the combination of colors, and I know that the colors were designed to work together, so I'm trusting that they do. And I really like that teal green and that touch of blue in there, along with that like rusty orange color. So isn't that quilted like cover die pattern on that fabulous? So I cut down my card base and I just stuck that on with liquid glue, and I'm gonna also cut out the Happy Thanksgiving. Now I created 3 of these Happy Thanksgivings. I did them all in a dark brown, and then I die cut them all out. I love, love, love this because I cannot get this effect when I try to fussy cut. Like if I had not had this die, I would have cut a rectangle around this, and I feel like it wouldn't be a good use of space. So having that die and being able to send that through my little die cut machine and have it perfectly cut out around it makes me so happy. I feel like the die set is worth it just for that, because I feel like this will give me more real estate on my cards to put some of those leaves and stems and things. Like, I really like that. This is one of my favorite kinds of stamp sets, to have all the stems and everything, because in the fall I can make them fall colors. In the spring and summer, I can make them different shades of green, and do all kinds of things. And I just love these kinds of things. I think they're so versatile. So I'm going to put down some orange gems on this one. And I like that these gems have a flat side so that they're easy to attach to the paper, but they still have a lot of dimension on them. They're actually, and I'm using all 3 of the same size gems here, but there's a variety of sizes of gems in each of these packages. So these are beautiful gems. And this card has a beautiful white background with a little bit of pattern to it, and it's very subtle. I love the elegance of that Quilted Slimline die. That's a cover die, so I will use it over and over for many projects. So now I'm going to cut down a card base, and I cut them down 6 by 6 and I fold it in half. So my finished card is actually 3 by 6. And I'm cutting a top piece down that is 2 3/4 by 5 3/4. So there will be a little bit of white space around the edge of that. Now with the last card I made, with the last 2 cards, I just glued the top panel that I decorated down to my card base. This time I'm going to add some dimension to the back. Here's another way you can use these stamp sets. This is my clear watermark ink. This is my embossing ink. So I'm stamping my own background paper here, and I'm using the stem with the 3 maple leaves because it was my favorite of the whole set. And I'm trying to let some hang off the edges, and I'm trying to, get everything stamped. And I'm going to actually heat emboss this in clear. So I'll immerse this in my clear ink, and then I'll go ahead and heat set it. I won't make you watch all that because it's torturous. You can see I'm very messy. And I went ahead and heat set it. You can just see it. If I tip it sideways, you can see the little shine. And I pulled out my Distress Oxides because they blend on any paper that I have. So this particular white cardstock that I'm desperately trying to use up, the Distress Oxides will work very well on this paper. Excuse me. And it doesn't matter what blender brushes I use. So with my, actually I've been mostly using my old foam blender tools. So I'm using Scattered Straw here, and I have Wild Honey and Marmalade Spice, I think it's called. And I thought that Wild Honey was orangier, but it just turned out to be, I haven't used it in a month or so, and for some reason in my head it was orangier than it came out today. So I decided that I would go ahead and add some of that spiced marmalade. I can't remember the name of it. It has marmalade in the name. I know it does. So I decided that I definitely want to make those edges darker. So I'm just going around the edges with that orange, and then I'll smooth everything out with the Scattered Straw. And as I looked at it in the camera, I just didn't think the edges were dark enough. And since I heat emboss this, that's a resist technique, so that those spots that I use the clear embossing powder on actually resist the ink, and I'm using my microfiber cloth just to buff that off, the embossed images. And you could see that brightened it up quite a bit. So of course I'm going to, fuss with it some more so I can wipe it off again, because that's what we do, isn't it? We fuss with things. So I'm making the edges a little darker with that orange. Lately, I've really found that to be a very pretty thing to do when I'm ink blending. I'm really darkening up the edges and then letting the inside part of the card be a little bit lighter than the edges. And I really like that look for some reason. I don't know why. Just lately it's been appealing. And so now I'm just going to put this on my card base, and I'm going to put a bunch of foam tape on the back of this and add it to my card base. And then I'm going to add my sentiment, hopefully a little straighter than that. And I was thinking that I would just add some of those little gem embellishments and call it a day on this card, but of course I looked at the pile of the extra stems that I had left over, and I decided to pull just one out and tuck it in there and put a little liquid glue behind that to hold it in place. And I don't need much of this liquid glue that I'm using, so it just will hold it in place. And again, I want to leave the edges of the leaves not glued down so that they give the card a little bit of dimension, even though it has a lot from the foam behind the ink blended panel and the foam behind the sentiment. And again, I'm going to use 3 gems here and attach those to the front. So that will complete my 3rd card. So, I could keep going with these. I have so many ideas for this stamp set, and I really love it. I think it's just a beautiful, sweet little stamp set, and it is very nice to have the coordinating dies. I've been not purchasing the coordinating dies as much lately and just exclusively using my brother's Scan and Cut, but I really loved having the coordinating dies here. As soon as I saw that Happy Thanksgiving, I knew that I couldn't make that happen on my brother's Scan and Cut as easily as I could with a die. So here are the 3 cards all together. You can see the stamp set there and the die set. And I'll pull out the other things that I use so you can see those again. And they're all very different depending on what your taste is. Like, these are very different cards, but they all convey the same message. So I have a person I'll be sending each one of those to depending on who they are. There's the scalloped slimline dies, the stitched slimline dies, and then that quilted cover die, which is pretty amazing. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Have a wonderful day.